So this is the August 27th, 2020 meeting of the Southampton Village Zoning Board of Appeals is now open. On the approval of the minutes, it says July 23rd, but I think we really want the August 18th ones, which was the last meeting we had. Mark?
Mark isn't there.
Uh-oh. Because he pointed out to me that there was what he thought was a understatement or an error in the August 18th meetings, and that the addition to the house on Cooper Farm Road was labeled a minor addition. And he didn't think it was minor. I don't think it's minor.
I believe Antoinette knows about that, and I believe the correction was made.
All right.
But I can double check on that. Do you want to hold off on approving that until the next?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea. What it says on the minutes, July 23rd, I think we already did that one at the last meeting. We approved that one already.
Right, so the agenda has an error in it as well.
Right.
Right, okay.
That should say August 18th.
Yeah.
3045, the Joyce Trust. That's not up for decision. We're waiting until we have a full board, right?
Correct.
All right. 3073, Chickamauga LLC, 500 Catholic Lane. We have a decision on that from Chick, I believe. Is that true, Chick?
Sent a decision earlier today. This is that project that is just a wetland buffer restoration. It doesn't involve any actual construction. It was pretty much ready at the last meeting, and we did get some minor revisions to the landscape plan that I requested. So we have that decision. It should be ready to go with all the standard conditions and referencing the appropriate plans.
I move we accept that decision as written.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have Mark back.
Yes.
Did you hear us about those meetings, Mark, the August 18th meetings?
Jolie, can you unmute Mark?
I'm sorry,
Mark,
yeah.
can you unmute?
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Oh, Mark, unmute.
You just did, I think.
Oh, hold on. Can you unmute? Oh,
I did.
perfect, okay.
You didn't.
You're good.
Did you hear what we said, Mark, about the August 18th, about the minutes?
That we're approving them?
No, we're not going to approve. We're going to hold off because you and I had something to say about those minutes.
Okay, so that we haven't made that adjustment yet?
No. Well, evidently someone is making the adjustment on the minutes, but we have to see it first.
Right, I believe that the adjustment's been made, but until you see it, we can hold off on doing that if you'd like.
Okay.
That brings us up to 3036, Andrew and Dana Stone, 527 Meadow Lane.
Okay.
We have some stuff on that, I think.
If you're present for this application, please raise your hand. Okay. All right.
Chick, you want to comment on that?
Sure. I believe the applicant is here. I had been in touch with them this week. This is one that has been in front of the board for a long time. It is the application that involves the reconstruction of a wall that has collapsed. So we're quite familiar with that. We did receive some new materials yesterday submitted by the applicant. I may be able to share my screen, so you may be able to see this. And basically, there was a prior dimension here of 127 feet. The change is that has been modified to 100 feet, which is consistent with the measurement that I took in the field this week, a few days ago, of the gap in the wall. So what has happened here is the wall has collapsed to the east and is sitting between and within wetlands in this particular area. There was commentary on the part of the board previously to allow a partial section of a wall to only the point of the wetlands, which is this line here. This stippled area is the wetlands. So I commented to the board last time that I wanted to look at this site again, now that we had more complete and up-to-date plans and a few responses. I was able to tour the site this week and take pictures and measurements. And what I found is that, as I said, this portion has collapsed. This portion is intact. In the area that has collapsed, there's an embankment, Stone property and the Hereford property to the west. And it varies anywhere from maybe 2.5 up to maybe 4 feet, 3.5 to 4 feet. The consideration for just part of the wall would solve an erosion problem which is occurring now, where the embankment is unstable. It's a little bit steep, but it would not address the segment in the wetland area or adjacent to the wetland area. And I did observe in the field that that's where it tends to be a little bit steeper, a little bit higher, and is eroding. The collapsed wall is at the base of that slope, and it's actually probably retaining some of the soil. And you can get tidal inundation in that area. So water will rise and fall, and is contributing to the erosion. And if there were to be a storm, I think the erosion would be more severe. The applicant came back and did indicate that there is runoff because there is a slope along the side of the Hereford house where there was fill, and runoff is transported toward the east. And they also submitted this plan, which would show what would happen if there were a gap. And it would leave this 40-foot area. Potentially, you may get some of this runoff traveling northward, but you would certainly continue to get erosion in that area. And you have the rise and fall of tides that could be eating away at this bank as well. So the prior suggestion to just stabilize to the wetlands is not really practical. And that's what I wanted to visit and discuss with you tonight. The applicant is still proposing a wall that would join with the portion of the site that the wall is still remaining. And I really see two options here. This would be one option. I would want to make sure that it's the minimum height wall. But in looking to be responsive to the board's comments thus far, a potentially less structural solution would be some type of a stabilized bank. Now, you would have to recognize that that would involve removal of the collapsed wall, and it would involve some grading into wetlands. Because if the slope is too steep now, you would have to bring material in, probably use some type of geotextile mat, potentially use core log, and plant that area extensively in order to stabilize it. So that would be an alternative, what is proposed by the applicant. And we can certainly hear from the applicant if they are present with respect to my summary, what they're proposing, and then we can have the discussion. Does the ZBA want to look at an alternative that would be less structural? So that's my summary. Are there any questions based on that?
Yeah, I think, Chick, what you're saying, but I just want to clarify, is you're saying it's possible that the same goals could be accomplished by essentially a vegetative buffer, a non-structural wall, vegetation.
It's a little bit different, Mark, in the sense that it would involve some fill into wetlands. Basically, if you were to do that, I don't know if, yeah, this would be a good scenario. So the collapsed wall that's in this area, right where the pointer is impacting wetlands. If you have a 1-on-2 slope, if we were able to stabilize it at that slope with Corlock and geotextile mat, a 4-foot rise would require 8 foot of disturbance into wetlands. Because we really can't be in a position where we are removing soil from the property to the west. You would have to make it stable by encroaching into the wetland and the buffer east of the unstable bank. If it's 3 feet, that would potentially be 6 feet of disturbance. So it's a little different. It's not exactly the same solution. It does involve some loss of wetland, but it would provide habitat and vegetation for dissipation of stormwater and the other benefits associated with buffer.
Just, let me just make one comment here. Just to be clear, any sort of regrading or whatnot would have to occur on the applicant property without express consent from the neighbor, Hereford. So for these purposes, you know, we should be considering that any sort of regrading would have to be on the applicant's property, which may change the amount of fill or whatnot necessary to do that. So I just want to make that point.
Yes.
Well, the neighbor is in favor of the wall, so I don't know if she'd have any objections.
Right, I'm just saying you can't force her to do that or make that a condition for this applicant.
She's certainly been before us enough times and expressed that she wants the wall replaced.
And she is here again requesting to speak. Jennifer Hereford is here requesting to speak, and so is Aram Tertunian. And I believe Gil Flanagan has already been let in as a panelist.
That's correct, right.
Okay.
Would you like me to? Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Gil.
Okay, yeah, I'd just like to make sure, I think we've already confirmed that the submission that Chick just mentioned is part of the record. There was also an additional submission made on or about August 17, which also addressed the erosion condition, and I want to make sure that everybody's had that and it's in the record. I think it's important what Chick pointed out. One of the issues I see, and perhaps Aaron can speak to that, is that filling in the wetlands with the alternative plan could run us into problems with the DEC. And I think that what we're proposing is probably the least intrusive method we could come up with. And it bears repeating, as we've said over and over again, that this is a 100-year-old wall. It's part of the character of the area. We think that to do anything other than what we're doing would give us trouble with the DEC. The neighbor, as McCormick has said, is and has been throughout this matter in favor of replacing the wall. And I think it would be the least disruptive to the environment and solve everyone's concerns. So I would suggest that the applicant remain with the proposal as it is. And as Chick did point out, that there are valid reasons for closing that 40-foot gap. Now, if Aram has any technical suggestions that I think that would be appropriate. Otherwise, I think the applicant's position is that we'd like to close the hearing.
Would you like Jennifer Hereford and Aram Tertunian brought in as panelists at this time? Okay. Okay, you guys are in. If you want to turn on your camera and unmute.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Aram Tertunian. I represent the applicant. I'm with First Coastal in West Hampton Beach. I want to thank Chick for going out again to the site, and I want to state that I agree with his summary of the conditions as he's expressed them to you. Also, I'd like the board to know that we did, in fact, evaluate the option that Chick has brought out to you, and for the reasons that he identified, which is namely fill in the wetlands, it's my professional opinion that that is not the best idea. I think it's actually a very poor idea. It will cause actual loss of wetlands as opposed to the proposal in front of you now, which is to actually retain all of the wetlands on the site. And we're only replacing the wall in the footprint of where the wall was. And I want to thank the board for hearing me this evening and happy to answer any questions.
Hi, this is Jennifer and Hilga Herford. We're the neighbors. As you all know, thanks for having us tonight. Yes, we'd like to reiterate our support for the wall, not for regrading anything, but for the wall and for the full wall. The DC has approved it. Our insurance company has paid $350,000 for it. The wall has been there for 100 years. We need it to protect our property, our soil that we came before you to get approval for when we raised our house. Our house is in the historic district, which you're aware of. It's classified as historic, and we are looking to preserve historic homes in the village. So I would assume that's in your interest as well. And we need the wall to preserve our home because the soil will continue to erode from our upland area into Mr. Stone's wetland if we only have a partial wall. And I believe that's something you're looking to avoid. It was a pleasure speaking with Mr. Voorhees a few days ago when he came to the property, and I think it was clear to him as well that a partial wall is not going to work. And we also ask that you address the existing portion of the wall that needs to be stabilized. Failing to do so would only be putting a Band-Aid on the problem, because that over time will continue to erode. The stucco is falling off, that's going into the water. Don't presume that's something that you want to have happen. So I'd love an explanation why we're not addressing that as well and stabilizing that as well. Additionally, just having a wall that goes just to the at grade, our property level at grade is not going to be enough. It needs to go a little bit above grade on our level, because otherwise with some wind, we're going to be blowing soil into Mr. Stone's wetlands property. And again, I believe that's something that you look to avoid. And finally, I'd like to say that the portion of the wall by the street that's still standing, there's a small portion of it by Mr. Stone's gate, is 8 feet high roughly. And Mr. Voorhees saw that after about 10 to 15 feet, that does slope down. And we'd like that portion of the wall to continue to be that height, especially in that area, to give us privacy. It's our front door, it's our home, and Mr. Stone has a very active service entrance. And so we'd like that height to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
So yeah, I have one more comment if I could.
Sure.
Yeah, first of all, I also would like to thank Chick for the effort he's put into this. I know he's been to the site a number of times and he's given a lot of consideration, as he always does, to cases of this type. To answer the comment we just heard, one of the things I think we made clear in the past is that we're not seeking to do anything at this point with the remainder of the wall that's standing. And if at such time as that needs to be done, we'll have to address it at that time. We did submit some information concerning how that could be done in terms of maintenance, but that's not part of this application. And I want to be sure that that's clear when the board conducts its deliberations. That having been said, I would respectfully request that we close the hearing and hold the case for decision only.
Do we have any questions before we close this? Anybody on the board?
Well, I mean, I think that the question would be, if you want to close the meeting, I mean, that's fine. I suppose that's everybody's prerogative. But I think an alternative was presented, and I'm not sure how the other board members feel, but I was, I was curious about the alternative, and I don't know that we've explored the alternative, and I usually think that's one of our mandates, that we consider alternatives. But I mean, again, I'll defer to Gil Flanagan. If he wants to close the meeting, that's fine. But if
I do have a
close the-
question for Chick.
I'd be left wondering more about the alternative.
Chick, I have a question
Yes,
for
Dan.
you.
Sure.
Do you think that if you were to go with Phil, that this would create an issue with the DEC?
It potentially could. They have issued a permit. I would certainly want to check with them. There is an existing wall that is collapsed and lying in the wetlands now. The applicants proposed to basically put a wall back where it was and restore the wetlands where that collapsed wall is lying now. And the alternative would involve some fill into wetlands. So that's certainly, it's a consideration that Mr. Tertunian brought up. We don't want to put them in a position where they can't secure a DEC permit, so we would have to check into that further.
This is Aram Tertunian again. I just like to point out to the board that there's a report in your file. This is the cover. It's dated April 29th, 2020. And if you go to page 5 of that report, you will find a series of alternatives that were considered and discussed, including the vegetative core log type solution that Mr. Voorhees suggested. And it is my professional opinion that that is ill-advised because it requires fill in the wetland, which is impermissible under the DEC regs and contrary also to the village regulations.
Yeah, I personally feel that there's enough information having to do with the proposal and the alternatives. We could move forward, and I would respectfully request that you do that.
So the applicant is requesting that we close this for decision.
So moved.
Okay,
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It was closed for decision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On 3050 Community Baptist Church, I believe we have a decision in this regard.
Oh, you first need to close the public hearing, and we'll first make sure there's no comments and then close it.
We just closed it. Oh, you mean
3050.
you want to close out? All right.
If there's nobody here from the public who wants to speak.
All right. Is there anybody here from the public who would like to speak to the Community Baptist Church? Then I move that we close this for decision.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now I move that we accept the decision as written.
I'll second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that is closed and it is decided. South Lane Properties regarding 72 Gin Lane. I think we'll discuss this one ad infinitum.
Thomas Gibbons is here. He'd like to be heard.
Okay. Bring him on.
And John Bennett is here as well. Would you like him brought in at this time as well?
If they want to, yeah. I'd like to advise them to please do anything new. If you have something new, not just the old stuff we've already heard.
Yep. Good evening, everybody. I got cut off a second. I'll wait until Mr. Bennett comes on. There he is.
Hi.
Good evening. At this time, unless the board has any questions, I'd ask that they close the public hearing and put it on for decision.
All right. John?
Well, so Mr. Gibbons is withdrawing his request that the vote be by a 5-member board. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay, I have no objection.
Does the board have any more questions on this application?
No.
If not, then I move that we close this application for decision.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're on quite rapidly now. 3066 Easter Realty, 145 Cooper's Farm Road. Is there anybody here for this application?
If you're here for this application, please raise your hand.
Somebody did earlier in a note. They said that they were here for it.
It's,
Morgan
Morgan Rowlands.
now.
Yeah, he's here.
It's critical now.
You need to unmute and turn on your camera, Mr. Rowlands.
Absolutely critical.
John Bennett is still in here. Mr. Rowlands, you're on. You have to unmute.
Hello?
Mr.
Hi.
Rowlands? Yes. Can
you hear me?
Yes, we can't see you. Could you turn on your camera?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi. I believe our attorney, well, first, good evening, members of the board. Our attorney, Mr. Kriegsman, was not able to get on the Zoom meeting this evening. So I get to try and explain as eloquently as possible. Should I recap the application?
Oh, I think we understand the application.
I think there was some error. I know that you say that it's a subsequent or a substantial renovation, but I just want to reiterate that it's only asking for additional square footage to the second floor. So the footprint of the house remains the same.
We understand that.
And that the homeowners owned the home for 13 years and that she always intended to do some renovation work and was told by the original owner that there was some square footage available. And yes, she did not make it within the time frame when the building code was changed from 12% to 10% allowable on the lot.
Right. Anything new to tell us?
I don't have anything new, just that we're trying to get, based on the current codes, we're trying to get 474 square feet for the second floor. And in terms of the, yeah, excuse me?
That's not us.
Oh, okay. And then.
There is some kind of background noise.
Sorry, maybe it's just wrong. There is, for the current house, and what we're asking to add is 362 square feet. Only on the second floor. Above.
Does the board have any questions? Anybody else would like to be heard of this application?
No one else is in the audience requesting to be heard.
Have something?
No one's requesting to be heard on this.
All right. I move to close 3066 Aiso Realty, 145 Cooper's Farm Road for decision.
I'll second.
In favor?
Aye.
Three 3074 Anthony Paduano, 137 South Main Street. Anybody here for this one?
Yeah, Gil is here. I'm going to bring him in now. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good, yeah. Gilbert G. Flanagan for the applicant. I think this case was heard in full at the last meeting. And my recollection was that the board didn't have any issues or request any additional information, so we would hope that we could move forward to action.
Is there anybody from the board who'd like to be heard?
What happened where?
I'm sorry. It sounds like there's a woman yelling in the background. If
Actually,
anybody could try and get that under control, I'm sure we'd all appreciate it.
Not coming from here.
Coming from here.
Me either.
I think it might be coming from Village Hall.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, if we have no comments on this and no questions, I would move that we close this one too. 3074. I move we close it for decision. Any second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, Gil. That brings us up to 3075, Eleanor W. Cohen, 359 Meadow Lane. I think we have some new information on this.
John Bennett is coming in.
Hello?
Hello, John.
Everyone hear me?
Yep.
Oh, thanks. Good evening. So, it's John Bennett for the applicant, and I think John Hamilton is here from LaGuardia Design. I think so. If he's not, he should ask to be let in. But not, I'll just carry the ball. In response to comments raised at the last work session, we submitted a revised site plan.
Excuse me, John.
Oh, sorry.
Chick Voorhees has been bumped out of the meeting. He needs to
I-
call back in.
He's an attendee. One moment. Let me try to bring him back in.
And I see John Hamilton is there also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you like me to bring him in as well?
Please.
Okay. Okay. Everyone should be in.
Hi, John.
Hi, everyone. Hi, board members, Chick, John.
Hello, John.
So, should I proceed?
Yep.
Okay. So, as I was saying, in response to comments at the last work session,
No.
we submitted a revised site plan, landscape plan, and construction methodology. And we also followed the revised interscience plan, which, among other things, shows a comparison of the existing, the proposed conditions of the property. Really what we're trying to do, I think the bulk of what we're doing here is in response to some comments primarily from Mark to increase the amount of buffer on the property. And I think we've done that quite well. We increased the buffer along the length of the driveway. So the approach to the home has been straightened slightly to allow for an increased buffer. And we also increased the buffer in the southern portion of the property so that it's essentially 50 feet in depth or as close as possible to 50 feet in depth given what's going on there. And it's pretty remarkable what we've been able to pick up. We originally proposed a planting plan that at the last public hearing we showed everyone that had an area of native vegetation of 74,515 square feet. It's currently 15,915. So at the last meeting we had 74,515 total. As currently proposed, the property would we'd bump that up to 93,275. So that's over 2 acres total, which is probably more substantial than any buffer that I've seen on either an undeveloped property or developed property under the village wetlands law since I've been doing these applications since the law was passed in 1989. We did receive some comments from Mr. Voorhees, which were related, and I'll let Chick respond if I'm saying anything improper or not correct. It was primarily related to the planting, some species in the planting plan, and I thought I would ask John Hamilton to respond to that. And when I say respond, I'm sure a lot of the responses will be mostly doing what Chick says he wants us to do, but I just wanted, at least I hope that's what we're doing, John. And I'll just ask John to respond to that.
Yeah, thank you, John. So, Chick, we received your comments earlier today. Thank you for those. We
Yeah, we
agree
did
with.
just receive the plan yesterday, so
Yes.
certainly be responsive and, move this along.
That was a great turnaround.
Thank you, Chick.
So the comments we received, we agree with. We think they're all for the betterment of the planting plan, the revegetation for the project. And I just want to note to the board, as John said, this is over a 90,000 square foot buffer. So this is 2 acres of actively planted zones that were previously either lawn or basically, all invasive species. So this is a huge amount of plantings going on here. We actually have somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 individual plants proposed for this revegetation. So it's not even that this is a seeding or a native quick meadow. This is an actively planted plant by plant revegetation. So this is a tremendous investment by the client here to establish this revegetation. Chick, I did have a few minor questions for you. If we could take a few minutes just to just for me to run those by you on your comments.
We can do that. It is of a highly technical nature.
Okay.
And I may want to have a further discussion with my landscape ecologist.
Okay.
So if you want to make note of first of all, we're amenable to discussing any of those comments.
Okay.
Just want the plan. Overall, the improvements to the site are extraordinary. I would certainly agree with that. And if I could just maybe take a moment to walk through a couple of the changes before we hear from the board members, maybe that would be helpful. One of the things that came up was the driveway treatment. And there is an additional, John hadn't mentioned this, but there's an additional note here that revegetation along the driveway involves 1,942 gravel plants. So this will all be restored along the driveway. It can still be maintained from the standpoint of mowing periodically because it is a driveway, but it would not require much more maintenance than that. And this is where the buffer was expanded to be the 50 feet that basically now rings the property. So this plan overlay does show the prior structure. We did verify at the last meeting, but it was one comment regarding the sanitary system location, the drainage in this area, and basically that the drainage will work based on depth of groundwater and mounding of the site. And as both John Bennett and John Hamilton have indicated, this plan really results in a very large restoration area that is exemplary for this type of permit review. There are, encroachments into buffers from existing structures that are being improved. And certainly the board at the last meeting was looking to, come up with the best plan possible. But this seems to address everything that came up at the last meeting. As was said, I did prepare a quick memo today, and I'm more than happy to talk through some of the technical details of plant density and making sure that we don't get invasive plantings in the area based on the density of plantings and the type of materials being installed, as well as the maintenance practices. So those were primarily the nature of the comments having to do with invasives control and density of plantings to make sure that we can keep invasives out.
Chick, could I ask you to repeat what you said about what the maintenance would be around the driveway with the changes that were made since the last meeting?
Sure.
I just didn't catch what you had said.
Yeah, I think part of it was that the prior plan had a note that said lawn along the driveway. And I don't know if that was actually maintained and fertilized lawn, but it did beg a question of what is going on with the driveway treatment. Because there's wetlands to the south and east of the driveway, and really throughout this entire area, that was a question, and the applicant came back and put a note on the plan, revegetation along the driveway with native species. So that's since the last meeting, and that's an improvement to the plan. And certainly if the applicant's landscape architect wants to comment further to help us understand that, that would be helpful, but that's my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can clarify. I'm sorry I didn't see your name, the board member who commented on that, but just to clarify, the driveway is very low lying here.
Mhm.
So we need to use plantings that are resilient to that kind of condition. So it's basically all a native grass that would be up to within 2 feet of the driveway. We would keep a 2-foot mowed edge along the driveway just to keep like ticks and things like that off you when you're walking down and then moving around. But the whole rest of the property boundary from there to Meadow Lane, basically on the property, would be, the lawn would be removed, as Chick mentioned, and replaced with this native grass that really needs no maintenance at all, no fertilization, and perhaps a short irrigation for the first 1 or 2 seasons.
Would that be,
Okay, but
John,
mowing would still be required.
yeah, would that be periodically mowed?
You know, we don't see that being mowed because they're individual plantings that are going in. I mean, we would really see them being left there to establish. I wouldn't see this being a mowed scenario, no.
Is there a need for any kind of root barrier with respect to invasives in the adjoining wetlands?
There's a few ways, Chick. That was one of my main questions for you about the mugwort. You know, we've had times when we've tried to use a chemical treatment on it, and it actually hasn't been that successful. It's such a vigorous plant that actually manual weeding seems to be the most effective removal device.
Yes.
So
that's actually what we recommended. I think the plan said cutting, but
yeah, it would start with cutting, then go to manual weeding. I just wasn't sure. Usually in these wetland buffers, it's not. I think in the past we've tried to stay away from chemical treatments, but we would defer to you, Chick, on your recommendation also.
yeah, I think canned weeding would be the way to go.
Yeah.
Hey, Chick, I have a question here, and one is, you know, this looks like it's moving towards, you know, closing out to approval, but I still have a problem with construction methodology of, I mean, I just know on a build site, you're going to get 12 construction vehicles, dumpsters, material, lumber piles, garbage piles, a telehandler, forklifts, you know, equipment on this property. And, you know, with the berm up around one side and a drainage field on the other side, it seems like it's very tight. And I just imagine all this equipment parked out on the main road. You know, do we have a real good plan of how to keep this equipment from migrating into this buffer area?
Kevin, I'm sorry, Dan, we did submit a rather detailed construction methodology.
I'm just asking Chick if he reviewed it and if he thought that it was adequate, and that the protection of the wetlands, because I know on a construction site you can sort of merge over your, you know, outside of the sort of into the protected areas. You know, that's you know, so I don't know if we have a policing method or a fencing method or what you know. Are you happy with that, Chick?
Well, what we've done in the past on large sites like this is to look for a bond in case any restoration is needed. That's been a typical practice of the board. This was the plan I believe that John is referring to. There was a detailed demolition and construction methodology that shows contractor parking and you know, driveway removal and various stockpile areas and so forth. We did look at it. It will certainly be a challenging site. It does have to be done carefully and in accordance with the plan. And I probably would recommend a bond on a project such as this.
Yeah, because I see there'll probably be a lot of vehicles parked out on the main road because, you know, I've just seen construction sites and, you know, to get everything in there, it's a narrow driveway. You know, people are going to be blocked in and they're going to want to get, you know, everybody's time frame is different. So, you know, I'm a little concerned about it on this project with that long driveway with the main, you know, Meadow Lane and not really. I don't think there's a lot of space on the site.
Well, we have no problem with the bond. Oh, I'm sorry. Should I?
No, John Bennett, who on your team would be best to comment on the construction plan?
Well, we have no problem. We thought that honestly, we thought the construction plan and methodology as it was laid out was satisfactory. I will agree with Dan, though, that sometimes what happens on these sites is there's parking in the right of way, and even in projects where there was no wetlands aspect to it, John Foster and then Chris Talbot have required bonds to make sure that there's no, if there's any damage out there, it gets taken care of. So, I mean, I would have no problem with augmenting, the construction methodology with the bond for whatever amount, Chick, you and your, or Dan, you and your exercise of discretion feel comfortable with. I mean, there has been some, I've seen some deals done with the village whereby some of these construction trucks are parked, at the Agawam parking lot when, if it's construction is happening during the winter. The problem I have with agreeing with that is I don't want to be subject to, that those deals sometimes may or may not happen. But so I think if I made the best way to deal with it is a bond of sufficient amount to not only to ensure that any damage is taken care of, but also as sort of what we call in the law an inter-rorum effect to make sure people follow what they're supposed to do. We have no problem. We're presenting a plan so that you should we shouldn't blanch if you want to have some security to take care of that to make sure it gets done.
One thing that's notable on the plan, Dan, are the notes that just say zones to remain undisturbed throughout construction. So, while we expect a lot of activity in the primary construction area, they've clearly depicted on the plan all those areas where there will be no disturbance.
And I think the building department has been pretty darn good about making sure that those project limiting fences go in before construction starts, because at least I've been on a site where prior to requiring these barriers, let's just say the bulldozer operator's concept of what 20 feet is a little bit different than the surveyors.
Yeah.
But,
So
there is a clear depiction of
hay
the
bale with around the perimeter.
They have erosion control fencing depicted here. When it's installed properly, that is sufficient to contain the construction area. But this purple line is all the erosion control fencing.
Mm-hmm. Dan and Chick, yeah, our office put this together, and we're going to abide by all best practices for the silt fence and erosion control. And I think the buffer plan is misleading when you overlay it with the construction plan, because some of the buffer is going to have to be established at the end of the project. It's just we need the room for site staging and parking. So the purple line is where that will be to. And then a portion of the buffer will be installed at the end of the project as everything's wrapping up in there. And then I think the last thing to note is that it's not shown really on this plan, but most likely if the tennis court is going to be resurfaced or needs to be restored in place, that court could be used as parking as well.
I was going to say, I would recommend that.
Yeah, storage of materials. That's a very typical procedure we have on these projects. So that's an option, definitely.
That and the bond. I'd still do the bond.
Yeah.
Fine.
Anything else in this application?
Yeah, could you just narrate the width of the buffer around the perimeter of the property? Is it 50 feet everywhere? Or, except for that driveway entrance where it might narrow?
It's 50 feet. It's probably shown best on the InterScience plan.
Did they update their plan, John?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it's in a couple of spaces. It's 45 and 43-1 near the existing tennis court. But you know, you've got to remember, this is a 50-foot buffer, but then you've got another acre and a half or something more, you know, up on that finger that goes into the water. So if you look at, I mean, like all the houses on Agawam that you've approved recently have a 50-foot buffer, just a 50-foot buffer going across Agawam. This is far superior. We've got 50-foot, most 90% of it is 50 foot. There's a little bit of areas where we can't make it because it's going up to the existing tennis court, and a little bit of an area near where the right side of or the east side of the driveway where it comes in. But I mean,
I saw that, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but it was just that southern portion. Some of the areas just didn't have measurements, so I just wanted to see if Chick, you thought those were 50.
Oh well, Dan, I'm sorry, Mark. Just so you see on the InterScience plan, it's the 50 foot is called out very, 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 very clearly on the InterScience plan that shows the 50 foot. It's shown by a dotted green line that's landward of the pond and close to the house.
Chick, can you screen share that?
I am looking for it.
And John, I think one of the reasons that we're concerned is that you make reference to like the Agawam, where you'll have a piece of property where just one side of the property is facing the wetlands, where this particular property, it's like 360 degrees around the whole property, you know, around the whole house. So, you know, we're just trying to be a little bit more fussy with that, you know?
Well, no, I know that's why we've achieved a 50-foot, pretty much all of a 50-foot buffer.
Yeah, well, that's what I like about the plan.
Yeah, around it. Thank you, Chick. That's it. Yeah. You see the 50-foot line?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, right. So I do see it there, and then when you go to the south further, there's just no demarcation of 50 feet. I don't know if it's just a scale or if, Chick, you feel comfortable that's 50 feet.
Visually, it looks like 50 feet. It looks at least as wide as the 50 foot here.
More than 50 feet.
Yeah, I think we've got it.
Okay.
So, unless there are any other questions, I would respectfully ask that you close it for decision. I think you've got enough. I don't want to be precipitous or anything, but excuse me? Oh, subject to your receipt of a revised landscape plan, which will follow every one of Chick's requirements there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have any other questions from the board? Do we have any from the public? Then I move we close 3075 Ellen W. Cohen for decision.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time. Take care.
You too. Very good effort.
Thank you, Chick.
On 3076 950 Meadow Lane, we have a letter requesting adjournment to September 24th. I move we accept that request for adjournment.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That brings us up to John and Cheryl Ward, 1421 Meadow Lane. We have anybody on this one?
I believe Lisa Zaloga is here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, well, she's been promoted. Lisa, you just need to unmute.
And before Lisa comes in, Kevin, I'll just mention that I thought this was on the decision calendar. It's still under pending projects, and I ended up sending a draft permit late. So that was emailed even after this meeting started. My apologies for that. And as I said, when I looked at the agenda, I didn't see it under decisions.
Okay. Do we have Lisa?
Hi,
There you are.
there I am. So I think Chick, last time when we met, they weren't able to close anything for decision. It wasn't actually on for decision. I don't remember there being any questions for additional information. There was the one neighbor who spoke, and I gave him my phone number. He never called me, so I did check the file today, and I found that someone from his office had asked to get the application. So then I called them, and he was unavailable at the time, and he didn't call me back. So I don't know if he's here or not, but as far as I was under the impression, I think you guys had everything you needed. If you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Do we have any questions? I think we went over this one last time quite well. Do we have any from public who wishes to speak?
No, no one from the public has their hand up.
You want to close it for this?
Yeah, this is the plan itself. As we had said, it's very minor modifications. Lisa's cover letter explains everything that occurred on the property since the 2009 permit quite well. This is the document that I sent to you this evening.
Okay.
Chick, we can't hear you well.
I'm sorry. I think there might be background noise. So I don't know if you're in a position to want to move forward with this, but there was a
We can
intent.
close and then look at your decision between now and the next meeting. How's that sound?
If there's any possibility that we could do the decision tonight, obviously, we would love to get started before.
We've got it here. We can read it.
That would be great.
That good with David?
Yeah, that's acceptable to me if the board let's take time to read it.
Can we move it up just a little bit? There we go.
Do you want me to read through it? It's full.
I believe it was also circulated by email if any of you, the members, can pull it up and review it independently.
Can't do email while we're on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
At least I can.
All right, so it's wetland special conditions for 1421 Meadow Lane. Case was noted. It's to modify a previously approved project to a half-story addition, a first and second-story addition, a second-floor deck over an existing deck and stairs to an existing deck in conformance with the submitted plans. This is a type 2 action under seeker. The board has considered this in detail. Very familiar with it. There's a permit and hearing record, and you've weighed the information based on chapter 116-19.1 through 19.9. Basically, the site's been historically occupied by a dwelling and site improvements. This board issued a permit in 2009. The project is minor changes to a previously approved permit. None of the changes are significant or would change potential for environmental impacts. The site incorporated expanded wetland buffers at the time of the 2009 permit, and I did verify that those buffers are in good shape, and we believe this meets the standards for issuance of a permit. The conditions are pretty straightforward. There's the survey that I just displayed by Gary Benz, last date 3/17/2020, and Lisa Zaloga, the architect's first floor plans. All construction shall follow the noted plans. Noise, traffic, and construction impact will be temporary, but there are hours to direct that. Any sediment that says Captain's Neck Lane, I apologize. I will change that to Meadow Lane in the final version that I'll send. But that the building inspector will oversee that. And damage to streets will be repaired. And I do see that the header also needs to be corrected on one of the pages. So that's the draft permit for your consideration.
Thank the board have any comments on this decision?
No.
And anybody from the public would like to speak to it? So we have to close it and then vote on it, right? Right, David?
Yes.
On application 3077, John and Cheryl Wood, 142 Middle Lane, I move that we close this with decision.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
On 3077, John and Cheryl Ward, 1421, I move we accept the decision as written by our
A
environmental.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks. Take care.
Oh, Lisa. Good night, Lisa.
Thanks. Bye.
3078, BHNH LLC, 109 Hampton Road. I think we've discussed this one and we're pretty well prepared to accept it. Is that true?
Yeah, I have no problem.
That's the house on the corner.
Yes, this is on the corner of Element and Hampton Road.
Right. Anybody else on the board? Anyone from the public?
There's no one raising their hand for this application.
So we don't have a decision on this, but we can close it for decision, right? I move application 3078 BNH LLC, 109 Hampton Road be closed for decision.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Getting down to the nitty gritty here. 3079 Felix and Elizabeth Rowerton Trust, 365 and 385 South Main.
Okay, Linda Riley is here. I'm going to bring her in.
Okay.
Okay. Linda, you're in?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
But you can't see me?
No, we cannot see you.
Okay, can you see me now?
Now we see. Very good.
Okay, this was discussed at the last hearing, and since then I submitted a memorandum of law, which I hope you all got a chance to look at, which also includes some additional exhibits. The chair had asked last time about the separate tax bills, and we said they did have separate tax bills, both from town and the village. I submitted all of those. And in addition, I submitted a number of applications that I think are very, very similar in the same neighborhood, in the same vicinity, one across the street, directly across the street, one down on the corner on the next block to the north, and another one block over to the east. And all of these were cases that, conformed at one time, but there had been an upzoning, and so they no longer conformed. In some of these cases that I've provided you copies of and talked about in the memo, there were two houses on separate lots, sometimes even more density than that. But I couldn't find a case where there were two completely independent houses on two separate lots approved by the planning board, where a sort of redivision along the traditional classic line that had been approved by the planning board and was already there on the tax maps was denied myself. So I provided all of that information to you, as well as a more detailed analysis of the character of the neighborhood and the fact that really lots of these sizes, these are both, 85,000 plus square feet. One of them is 88,000 square feet, and the other one is something like 85,800 square feet. And that's really the predominant lot size in the neighborhood. In terms of, in fact, lots that conform, I could only find 3 in this neighborhood. And I think that we've shown that these are independently used, that there is complete 2 functioning houses with completely separate driveways, completely independently. And I guess I just want to ask at this point, if you have had a chance to review the memo, if you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions? I have no questions. I do have one question. Has any thought been given about taking this to the planning board rather than the ZBA?
Well, it's not an either or, I don't think. It has to go to, the planning board can't grant a subdivision for something that doesn't meet code technically. So, I think if you think these lots are merged, then it has to, before the planning board can act on it, it has to be approved for a subdivision. I mean, I made an argument in my memo that they haven't actually merged, but I understand that the board traditionally looks at this differently than I was urging. And if you do believe it's merged, I think the ZBA has to act. I can go to the planning board and I will do whatever, the village finds necessary to do. I can also ask the planning board to waive under the code. They have the ability to waive subdivision approval or certain steps in subdivision approval. That, I guess, would be up to the building inspector if he thinks it's necessary for me to apply to the planning board. And if it is, it'll be up to them, exactly.
If we deny your application, then you would go to the planning board?
Pardon me?
What you're saying is if we denied your application, if we say that the property has merged, then you would go to the planning board?
No, I'm not saying that. I can't go to the planning board unless you grant the application.
Hold on a moment.
Granted.
Hold on a moment. Linda?
Yes.
And are you asking in the alternative that the board grant whatever lot area variances or
yes, I have.
rear yard setbacks be necessary for you to go to planning if they feel they have merged and they need to grant those variances so that you can re-subdivide with planning?
I have asked for an interpretation, or failing that, I have asked for variance relief to allow for lot area variances. There are no other variances required, I don't believe. Both lots meet rear yard setbacks, front yard setbacks, lot coverage. The only exception I will point out to you is that the interior lot, the one that's at tax map number 5, has a pre-existing setback from the neighboring lot, not the common boundary line, but a pre-existing setback on the side yard of 25.7 feet, which does not meet current 35-foot setback requirement. But because I think the building inspector has traditionally, and the board has traditionally viewed this as not requiring variance relief because it's not a new setback. It's not for anything regarding this line. The line that we're concerned about is the common boundary line, and those setbacks conform, with the exception of that man-made water feature, which we have said we will remove. You can put it as a condition. Whether or not it's a condition, it's going to be removed, as is the shed. There is a shed straddling the property line in the back, a small shed. It'll be moved or removed. So we're not asking for relief for those things. I don't think anything else requires relief. But
Have any questions?
Kevin, what do you think? If they remove the shed, get rid of the water feature, that would approve this?
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
You'd be, just to be clear, you'd be approving the lot area variances so that the planning board could re-subdivide it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe we should have everybody read.
Yeah, we have to read the new memo. We have to look at that. I haven't seen that.
Okay.
So in that case, I guess we have to hold it open for the time being. Unless we have somebody from the public who wishes to be heard? No?
Let me look, hold on. Doesn't look like it, no.
No?
Nope.
Well, Linda, I guess what we should do is hold this open.
All right.
Just take a look at that.
Is there anything I can provide to you in addition before the next meeting?
Not that I can think of it. Somebody else has some ideas, but I can't think of it.
Okay.
So in the case of 3079 Felix and Elizabeth Roads and Trust, I move we hold this open for all purposes.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the last case is 3080 12 First Neck Lane. I don't think we have much of it. It's just a garage.
It's Gil, I'm gonna bring him in now.
Okay. This is a garage, I believe.
Okay. He's in.
Yeah, Gil Flanagan here. I think Dan summarized it correctly. It's an application for a garage and 2 sheds. There were only 2 things that were submitted after the last meeting. One was a submission I did with the tax map showing that we think this is a really unique property to begin with, given the development of the immediate neighborhood, as I pointed out at the last meeting, and as shown on the aerial photographs we submitted. And the second thing we submitted was something from the architect who had appeared before the Architectural Review Board on this and certain other aspects of the property. And they were, although they didn't act officially, they were favorably disposed. They liked the design of the garage shed complex. So I think that's fairly much all we have to say. I don't think there were any objections at the last meeting. I think we mentioned that both the neighbor to the west and the neighbor to the south had no objections. In fact, I think they would prefer this kind of development to another form of development. And in fact, we're in keeping with the historical area where the original garage was. So that having been said, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we would request that we close for decision.
Is there anybody else who'd like to refer to this application? Any board member, anyone from the public?
There's no public, I don't believe that's, no one's raising their hand, so.
Well, I guess we can close this one for decision. I move 080 412 First Neck Lane be closed for decision.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, David, we've closed an awful lot of decisions. You got your work cut out for you.
Yes, I've got quite a workload for the next meeting.
Do we have anything else that has to come before this board tonight? If not, I move that the August 2020 meeting of the Southampton Village Zoning Board of Appeals be closed.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think this went fairly well tonight.